Imagine waking up in a strange, suffocatingly hot desert city. You're dressed in a dark hood, a dagger at your side. You're a medieval assassin. But this isn't Europe. You've been dropped into the heart of ancient Egypt. The streets are foreign, the language unknown, and the rules deadly. Every shadow hides a spy, every corner a guard, and one wrong move means your story ends before it begins. Tonight, we uncover why you wouldn't survive a day as a medieval assassin in ancient Egypt. And trust me, it's far worse than you think. If you end up liking this trip through dusty streets and deadly shadows, make sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and tell me in the comments, would you survive a day in ancient Egypt? Or tap out before lunch?
The thought of stepping out of the shadows as a medieval assassin in the golden sands of ancient Egypt is the stuff of novels and video games. You can almost see it. A lone figure cloaked in dark cloth, blending into the shadows between towering sandstone pillars, watching the flicker of oil lamps along the palace walls. In your imagination, the air is filled with mystery, and the entire city sleeps as you move silently through narrow alleyways toward your target. It's the kind of romanticized adventure storytellers love: danger, secrecy, and the promise of glory for a mission completed. But the truth is much less glamorous. Ancient Egypt was not a place where strangers could simply disappear into the crowd. Cities were smaller, communities were tightly knit, and everyone knew who belonged and who didn't. Even without speaking a word, your posture, your gait, and the cut of your clothes would betray you. You'd be like a wolf among sheep, obvious, unsettling, and watched by every pair of eyes you passed. Before you even thought about approaching your target, you'd already be marked as suspicious. The fantasy crumbles the moment reality takes hold. Imagine stepping into a bustling Egyptian marketplace at midday. The sun is so bright it almost blinds you. The air heavy with the scent of spices, fresh bread, and livestock. Merchants shout in a language you don't understand, their words quick and melodic, full of sounds your tongue has never formed. You keep your head down, but even then, you can feel the eyes on you. It's not paranoia, it's reality. People here can spot the smallest irregularity, the way you look at goods without touching them, the hesitation in your steps, the absence of calluses that a local farmer or craftsman would have on their hands. The deeper you move into the crowd, the worse it gets. Whispers begin. A woman selling figs pauses mid-sentence to glance at you. A child tugs at his mother's robe and points. You're not one of them, and they know it. In a society where strangers are rare and usually bring trouble, the watchful stares aren't just curiosity. They are a silent alarm. Guards in simple linen kilts begin to take notice, their hands resting casually on the hilts of their bronze-tipped spears. You've barely arrived, and already you're a walking target. If you've come from medieval Europe, your body is accustomed to the damp chill of stone castles and overcast skies. Ancient Egypt's climate will hit you like a wall. The air is dry, heavy with the heat of the desert sun, and every step you take kicks up a fine powder of sand that clings to your skin and clothes. Within minutes, your tunic is soaked through with sweat, your throat feels parched, and your boots are filling with grit. Shade is a rare luxury here, and even when you find it, the air remains hot enough to sap your strength. Your weapons and tools don't fare any better. The fine dust creeps into every joint and crevice, dulling your blades and fouling your crossbow. Your leather straps begin to stiffen and crack, your gear baking under the relentless sun. Moving stealthily becomes a nightmare. Every breath is dry and shallow. Every step leaves a mark in the sand. Even if you somehow avoided suspicion from the locals, the climate itself seems determined to grind you down until you're nothing more than another forgotten traveler swallowed by the desert. Words are as important to an assassin as weapons. A wrong sentence can kill faster than a blade, especially in ancient Egypt. Here, language is not just a means of communication, but a reflection of identity. The sounds are strange to your ear, the syllables sharp and deliberate. If you try to mimic them, your accent betrays you instantly. And when you cannot speak the language, you cannot ask questions, read signs, or bargain for supplies without drawing unwanted attention. Even worse, the written word is a puzzle you cannot solve. Hieroglyphs cover the walls of temples and marketplaces, telling stories and warnings you can't understand. A guard's command, a priest's accusation, or a merchant's casual remark could mean life or death, and you wouldn't know until it was too late. In your silence, suspicion grows. An assassin without words is an assassin who cannot survive. In medieval Europe, you might slip past justice with bribes, influence, or the protection of your guild. In ancient Egypt, such luxuries don't exist. The pharaoh's law is absolute, and it is enforced with swiftness. The punishment for plotting against an official, or even being suspected of it, is brutal. There are no lengthy trials, no appeals. Judgment can be passed in a single day, and execution carried out the next. The methods of punishment are as terrifying as the laws themselves. Flogging, mutilation, or forced labor in the desert quarries are common sentences. And for the worst crimes, death, often public, as a warning to others. Once the authorities decide you're guilty, nothing, no clever disguise, no escape plan, will save you. You are in a land where the ruler is considered divine, and to defy him is to defy the gods. You arrive with the tools of a medieval killer, a well-balanced dagger, perhaps a slim crossbow, maybe even a short sword. In your world, these are the marks of a professional. But here, in ancient Egypt, they are alien. The shape of your blade, the style of your hilt, even the alloy of your metal stands out. No blacksmith in the Nile Valley would have crafted such a thing, and any man who sees it will know you are a foreigner. And what happens when your weapon breaks or dulls? You cannot repair it without attracting questions. You cannot replace it without settling for an unfamiliar design. Egyptian weapons, curved sickle swords, short spears, and bronze blades require techniques you haven't mastered. Your trusty tools become liabilities, and you are left with the uneasy feeling that the very objects meant to protect you may be the ones to doom you. In your own time, you might know the layout of a castle like the back of your hand, where the guard posts are, which corridors are poorly lit, and which doors are left unbarred at night. But ancient Egypt's great palaces and temples were different beasts entirely. These buildings were labyrinths of narrow corridors, high walls, and hidden chambers. Some passageways led nowhere, designed to confuse intruders, while others ended abruptly at sheer drops or sealed stone doors. The architecture itself was a trap for anyone who did not belong. And then there were the guards. They were not just soldiers. Many were trained from boyhood to protect sacred spaces. They knew the sound of a misplaced footstep, the flicker of a torch's shadow, and the telltale signs of someone who was lost. Every temple had areas forbidden to commoners, and stepping inside without permission could lead to an immediate arrest, or worse. In these places, stealth alone was not enough. You would need an insider's map and the trust of people who would sooner see you dead than let you harm their leaders. In medieval Europe, a noble might ride through the countryside with only a few attendants, presenting you with an opportunity. But in ancient Egypt, the wealthy and powerful were rarely left vulnerable. The pharaoh's officials and priests traveled with entourages of servants, guards, and scribes, often moving in covered litters or chariots that whisked them quickly from one guarded space to another. Their lives were tightly choreographed, their schedules known only to a select few. Even when they appeared in public, they did so in a way that made them untouchable. Guards would surround them, servants would shield them from contact, and the eyes of the crowd would be upon them. You would have no chance to slip close with a blade or to vanish afterward. To strike at such a target, you'd need to bypass not only physical defenses, but the invisible armor of ritual, ceremony, and public reverence that kept them untouchable. If you think only soldiers and guards were a threat to you, think again. In ancient Egypt, the priesthood was a silent network of influence that stretched across the kingdom. Priests were not merely religious figures, they were administrators, record keepers, and guardians of sacred law. Their eyes were everywhere, from the temples to the markets, and they kept track of every face that passed through their gates. A stranger in their city would be noted, questioned, and remembered. If you asked too many questions or lingered too long near sacred places, word would spread swiftly through this invisible web. The priests could summon guards, block your movements, or simply have you shadowed by temple servants who would report your every step. In a land where religion and politics were intertwined, crossing a priest could be as dangerous as confronting a soldier with a drawn sword. Perhaps you think poison could solve the problem, a subtle weapon that needs no blade. In your own time, a medieval assassin might slip a vial into a goblet or mix a powder into a bowl of stew. But in ancient Egypt, the wealthy took no chances. Their food came from trusted kitchens, prepared by servants who often lived within the household itself. Dishes were tasted by servants before being served, and ingredients came from known sources. Even the poisons you are familiar with might not exist here. Many of the plants and substances you use in your own time grow only in cooler climates. Egyptian flora is different, and their poisons are strange to you, dangerous to handle without knowledge, easy to detect without skill. You could try to learn, but in doing so, you would need to approach herbalists or healers, people who would immediately recognize that you are not from their land. Every path you take circles back to the same problem. You are an outsider in a place that notices everything. The Nile River is the heart of Egypt, its lifeblood and its highway. But for a foreigner, it is also a barrier. Crossing it without permission or familiarity is a risk. The river has its own rules, which boats are allowed where, which docks belong to which estates, and which stretches are patrolled by soldiers. To the locals, a new face boarding a ferry is as obvious as a torch in the dark, and then there is the river itself. The Nile is home to crocodiles and treacherous currents. Without a skilled ferryman, and without paying the right person, you could end up stranded on the wrong bank or worse. Every crossing is a calculated risk, and every ferryman has the power to decide whether you reach your destination or fall into the hands of the guards. In a land where the river connects every settlement, being unable to move freely upon it is like being trapped in a single room. The desert climate is an unrelenting enemy to a medieval assassin's tools. The leather straps that hold your gear together dry out and crack within weeks. Metal rusts and corrodes not from rain, but from the constant sweat and the abrasive sand that grinds against it. Your blades lose their sharpness faster here than in your homeland, and sharpening stones are not easy to find without drawing questions. Even your clothing begins to fail. Thick, dark fabrics trap heat until you feel as though you're baking alive. Boots that served you well on damp cobblestones are stiff and uncomfortable on the hot sand. Every piece of your equipment seems to be working against you, wearing down until you're left with nothing but the bare essentials. In the desert, you cannot rely on your tools, and without them, you are far less dangerous. Injury is inevitable for someone in your line of work. In your own time, you might rely on a trusted physician or an apothecary to stitch wounds and mix remedies. But in ancient Egypt, medicine is both familiar and alien. They understand the importance of cleanliness and use honey for its antibacterial properties. They have herbal remedies, poultices, and even surgical tools. But their methods are different, their ingredients strange, and their understanding rooted in a mix of science and religion. An infected wound could be treated with mixtures of animal fat and crushed herbs, or a broken bone set with wooden splints tied tightly in place. But the risk is high. Infections can spread quickly in this heat, and without the medicines you know, your recovery would be slow and uncertain. A deep cut from a guard's blade could mean the end, not because of the wound itself, but because of the long, fevered nights that follow. Even if by some miracle you succeeded in your mission, what then? There is no escape route, no secret guild hall waiting to receive you. You cannot vanish into the countryside because the countryside is as watchful as the cities. Villages are small and strangers are remembered for years. The desert offers no cover, only open land and the burning sun. You would be trapped in a time and place that is not your own. Every day would be another gamble. Where to sleep, what to eat, who to trust. You might survive for a time, but you would live as a shadow, forever on the edge of discovery. And once your luck ran out, there would be no rescue, no return to the life you knew. The idea of being a medieval assassin in ancient Egypt is thrilling in stories, but the reality is brutal. The climate would drain your strength. The people would see through your disguises. The laws would crush you without mercy, and the very tools of your trade would betray you. It is not a world built for you. It is a world built to protect itself from exactly the kind of danger you represent. In the end, survival is not about skill with a blade or the ability to vanish into shadows. It is about belonging. And in ancient Egypt, you would never belong. The sands would swallow your name. The Nile would carry away your story. And history would remember you not as a master of your craft, but as one.
More outsider who thought they could outwit an empire and failed.